Phil, first of all, I just want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. I know, when the Zorgonians came down to our planet a couple years ago, and they didn't decide to, I don't know, eat us, or enslave us, or make us into their pets, we all wondered what was going to happen next. And that was a rough few months there. A lot of low-level rioting, things being set on fire. But when the dust settled, the hardest thing was realizing that we aren't alone, that we aren't so special. It wasn't just the Zorgonians with their superior technology, but literally thousands of inhabited planets in our galaxy, just civilization after civilization, all hiding from us, until they thought we could handle knowing that we're not alone. It was a bit insulting, though, I have to admit. It's also likely that they jumped the gun a bit. I'm also grateful that when the Zorgonians introduced us to the instantaneous portals, those silver doorways that can zip you to any inhabited planet in the Milky Way, that you thought of me. I mean, I'm not the first person people probably thought of as a credible source here, as I spent 12 years, 3 books, and in retrospect, a very embarrassing TED Talk, trying to convince people that Area 51 contained proof of alien life. Well, I wasn't exactly right, but I was sort of globally right. I mean, absolutely none of the details were correct, like nothing. But I was somehow one of the few people who believed in my heart that this universe just had to, absolutely, definitely, surely had to have other civilizations in it. Even if it meant that the entire world laughed at me. And it does, or did. Who's laughing now, right? Suck it, Dr. Lakoff. Who's that crackpot who makes the entire community of crackpots look like geniuses now? Anyway, thanks for the gift. So, I've traveled to at least a couple hundred planets now, and just like you asked, you and the rest of the Human Progress Committee asked, I could start sending you reports on some of the most interesting alien educational systems I've observed. So let's start the Korlonians on Kepler 16b. Kepler 16b was actually one of the first exoplanets NASA identified, although at the time we thought it would be too cold to be inhabited, even though it's orbited by 2 different suns. The Korlonians, however, are hardy. They have thick brown skin with spikes and a set of googly eyes that run completely around their heads. Also, they're naked, just like totally naked, and they think I'm the weirdo because I have pants on. Actually, Korlonians, most civilizations wear clothes, so think again about what you say to guests. Anyway, they built these long, squat buildings, and almost no one ever goes outside, which makes sense because it's freaking cold out there. But every building has these awesome rooftop gardens where the Korlonians go and chill all the time, where, because of the double suns, everything has these double shadows. It's ridiculously cool, Phil. Seriously, you should check it out. Bring the whole family. But you didn't hire me for my descriptions of the architecture and travel destinations. You want to know about the education system. And here, I have to say, things are about to get weird. So hold on. There are no teachers, as such, on Kepler 16b. Well, no alive teachers, no instructional AIs either. Korlonians believe that the best source of information, wisdom, knowledge, moral instruction, all that stuff, are their ancestors. But whereas we read, books, Korlonians don't have books. In fact, they don't ever write stuff down. They just remember stuff, which they're pretty good at. But when they need to know something, they have to convince 8 other Korlonians to get together and hire someone who, well, the word they use is harchut, but to us they just look like a fortune teller. They have this whole class of Korlonians who are completely different than the other Korlonians. The harchut wear these funky pyramids on their heads, and they say things like, the furious gas of Bangalore marches through our conscious ideascapes. Just gobbledygook, But when people want to learn something, they get this circle of Korlonians together to sit at a table in one of those rooftop enclosures, and they have, I guess you'd have to say, a seance. It's weird. There's no way they could have known that on our planet we did something like this. They couldn't have stolen it from us, and we couldn't have stolen it from them, but I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, the Korlonians all huddle together around this table, while the one who wants to know something asks a question. Maybe it'd be something like, should I start a family with Carla? Or, how can I build a robot that will prevent the bone claws from knocking down my house? And then the Harchut makes this weird moaning noise, and then a shadowy figure just emerges from the table. Sometimes the ancestor ghost knows that the answer, but it's cryptic. Sometimes it's just grumpy and complains about being yanked from the afterlife. Another time it's just straight up, you really ought to talk to Kevin. But still, they got this bomb ghost dropping wisdom on them, and they still refuse to write anything down. And it's not like the ghost says like 3 sentences and splits. The ghost's monologue, just talk, 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 talk. It's really frustrating. The Korlonians do have great memories, but they're not perfect. They still screw things up and sometimes have to figure it out, and other times they go back to the ancestor, who's very, very likely to be annoyed and who might refuse to repeat itself on general principles. I don't blame them. Get a pen, Korlonians, seriously. The little kid Korlonians seem to go to these seances every week where there are specialized ghosts that apparently don't mind repeating themselves about basic kid stuff. Still, because it's a production, such a hassle, there's not a lot of education going on. They're basically done after a few years, and then they specialize pretty quickly. Dr. Korlonians, for instance, have a ton of seances, but even then, they're kind of incompetent for a long time, and no one seems to mind all the poor, sick Korlonians dying off because their doctors won't take some freaking notes. I mentioned this to them. They were not interested in my opinion, not even a little bit. Still, I have to say, the Korlonians are no dummies. Their whole system of education has this hazy, mystical coolness about it. No one's ever like, oh geez, I gotta go to class today. A freaking force ghost is teaching you. From the land of the dead, I mean. Maybe the Harchuts are just making the whole thing up. But if they are, man, it's a seriously impressive deception. And when it comes to learning, Korlonians never seem to take all of this for granted. Their knowledge is so hard-won, so magic, that they just appreciate it. It's precious to them. Maybe we can't make seances work because, well, seances are bullshit. But it would be pretty cool if at least in that way, we could make it more like the Korlonians of Kepler 16b. But they are never going to convince me not to write shit down. That's just stupid. Anyway, Phil, that's my first report. I'll have another one in about a week. Thanks again for giving me this chance. I'm learning a lot, and I hope you are as well. This is Dr. Eamon Scallion-Jones for the Alien Education Report, signing off.